Hello, everyone, and a good sunny morning or afternoon to you. We are here for the round two roundup for Release the Beast AOS 3 tournament, which we have been doing. We've been enjoying it. We've been having a great time, to be honest. 74 players. I think we're down to about 70 now. We've had a few dropouts, and we've been having a great time. Joining me, as always, is this fella, Stuart. How you doing?
Good. Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning, Luke. How we doing?
Very well, thanks. Thanks to everyone who's turned up a little bit early. I've got work today, so we've changed the time of the normal show. I say normal show, it's like the second one we've done, pretending that we're already instituted fellas. We're not. We're amateurs. But we're here to talk to you about the round two results. We're going to go through the results from table one all the way down to the pits at table 33 or whatever it is. No offense. And we're gonna talk about tactics, talk about stories from the game, talk about matchups. We have a few games that are, well, I think one game actually that's still outstanding. So we're gonna quickly get past that. Maybe do a few predictive talks about it. We don't have as much information about deep dive information about some of the games that we did last time, so it's going to be slightly quicker talk through. But we've got some big brain thoughts that we want to talk about at the end, don't we, Stuart?
Yeah, I'm very much looking to giving my usual weekly hypothesis that contradicts the one from the previous week. You know, usual punditry.
I'm looking forward to it. Right, shall we start off with table one? We have Raymond Lane and slowly becoming my favourite list ever made, and his Nurgle, and Tavi Gain and his Dinosaur Seraphon Thunder Lizard Monster Mash Mega List. This was an absolute corker of a game, Stuart. Tavi, being the confident, cocky son that he is, thought he might have a good time of it, and then by round two, he was really looking rough. Raymond blasted up his Pascal Blight Lords all buffed up to the max, and just took out a big chunk of Tavi's forces. He was getting some unlucky rolls, and then it became an absolute battle tactic scrabble at the end, all trying to scrabble around and get battle tactics. The battle plan that we were playing for this one was, what was it called? Power control? What's it called?
Power struggle. Yeah, power struggle.
Power struggle. Which is the 5 objective map where you have to control it for 2 turns, 2 of your player turns to do it. And I know that both of them said that gave them headaches in trying to get battle tactics and points and trying to get more than the opponent after the objective is burnt and been stuff like that. And it went to a 10-10. Tavi scraped the win, so it was a 1-point difference, but it went to a 10-10. We've been seeing a lot more close games, haven't we, Stuart?
Yeah, and I mean Raymond's still got to feel pretty good about the fact that he got the 10 points. You know, I mean you prefer to get the win, but still getting the 10 points means that if you're getting 5-1, you're probably going to be at the top of the 5-1 bracket. So you would come second then. Yeah.
For me, this is a loss to for Tavi. He should feel really bad about this. No, I'm checking. No, yeah, 10-10, and we've got a win and a loss. We do have another result similar to that further on down the tournament. But these are two awesome players, and Raymond's list, we've talked about it before. We're going to really be keeping an eye on it. We're happy that it's doing well, because to be on 30 points, which is what he's on now, is still pretty solid.
Yeah, that's great. That's more than I've got. So, and I'm still a no. So there you go. Yeah.
Right.
I am pretty impressed. Just as a side note, that Tavi was able to get through everything in Raymond's list, or at least enough to compete on the battle tactics.
Yep. So I know his Bastillodon was doing work, fighting against demons and things like that.
Yeah.
Fighting twice.
And when I saw him play you the other day, right? When he was Luke played him the other day. Luke was playing his breaker list with 2 gate breakers, Kragnos and a Man Crusher, and Tavi was playing the same list as he is in the tournament. And yeah, like it kind of looks like a toolbox army. It is definitely mixed arms, but it can do a lot of damage at range still with the Bastillodon.
Shooting list. You've got the Slan and the Bastillodon and then the Salamanders are short range, but they can usually get into position quite well and then be screened with the Saurus Knights. There's a lot of ranged output in Tabby's list, but Raymond's list was really fast and was able to close the gap really quickly with those 25-inch moving Puskar Blight Lords. Eh?
Yeah, and that 1 point, probably just comes down to some really small things in the game. So, I mean, it really could have gone anyway with 1 point.
Exactly.
That bodes well for Nurgle, and let's hope they don't get a new book so that they don't fix Blades of Putrefaction. All right.
Moving on. Charles and his Marathi Bowsnake Gotrek list versus B. Timmy and his KO list. This didn't go how I thought it would went. Timmy's done a bit of an upset here, and his amazing KO list. Let's have a quick look at it.
Yeah, so this is the one. This is the Barrack 3-1 that we're talking about every week.
With the 20 Iron Drakes. I played another KO player who's not in the tournament, but I played him in a pickup game, and he says that on the KO chats and on all the rumblings on the internet that this is decided that this is probably the strongest way to play KO at the moment in AOS 3. The normal Zilfin boat list with the Warp Lightning Vortex has dropped in power with the fact that you normally teleport your whole army, shoot and wipe out half the opponent's army. That output has definitely decreased. So we're seeing a more static gun line with the Iron Drakes and the Thunderers that are usually deployed on the ground. And B. Timmy's making it work.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the list. It's just a load of stuff, isn't it? You kind of get a lot more compared to some other AOS 3 armies. And it's much like kind of Tabby's list from before, where we've got a lot of different threats going on, which is quite strong against usually the one or two threat list that we're seeing. And his opponent was running Marathi Bowsnakes and Gotrek, right?
Yeah. So how do we think that we don't have too much detail about the game, but how do we think he dealt with Marathi and Gotrek?
So it's interesting. When AOS 3 first came out, people were suggesting that Marathi might be more oppressive than she was in AOS 2. But I think Unleash Hell might make her quite a bit worse than she was before, because you
actually only get 4 basically. How many? She's normally got 4 rounds of 3, doesn't she? But so on her last quarter, on her 3 wounds out of 12, she can't really charge something, can she? Because Unleash Hell might kill her.
Yeah, whereas it used to be you could just send her in with the 3 wounds and then kill something, and then take an objective, and then your opponent would have another thing less in their turn to kill Marathi. So that swing of them both being able to kill her and then also still have the unit is huge. Yeah. And
obviously everything in Timmy's list, being able to shoot and probably do those 3 wounds on Unleash Hell, probably caused a few problems for him. And we reckon Marathi probably went down quite quickly in that game.
Even if you get lucky with 10 Arkanauts, you can do 3 wounds to Marathi. So
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Gotrek went down in this game. I'd like to message them afterwards and find out, because I think a lot of the shooting that the KO has is, damage 2, 10 attacks, 12 attacks. It's not that big bucket of dice, and unless he got a few Arkanauts in, but he didn't have that many. I guess Ironclads would probably kill Gotrek actually with their double shooting. Not Ironclads, Iron Drakes. So I'm gonna follow up on this because B. Timmy's sitting at the top of near the top of the leaderboard now with his win over some Marathi list. So well done to him. Repping the KO still. Moving on to table 3. This is the game that we haven't yet had play, but I'm actually really excited and if it is going to be played soon, I want to watch it. It's Olivier and his Fox Lumineth list versus Maximus's Monster Mash. No, he's got his old Fangs of Sotek Croak list. Got Maximus is running, that's right. So how do we reckon this is going? Fox Lumineth into Fangs of Sotek.
I would have thought Fangs of Sotek would be heavily favoured in that matchup.
They're a shooting army, the Fox's weakness, so we're probably thinking the Foxes are going to go down, because they're not that survivable, are they, when you can get a few shots on them?
I think the only concern would be him just losing all his heroes early to the Foxes, because they're really good at killing small heroes.
I think, they could take down Croak quite early, to be honest with you. the Foxes and the Sentinels, if they put a few shots into Croak, he could go down turn 1.
He could, And that's the danger with Croak, isn't it?
Mm. So we're gonna put a pin in that one, and we'll maybe come back to it afterwards. But we're looking forward to see how that one goes. Good luck to both of those players. Table 4. What do we have going on here, Stuart?
We had Forgive playing his Seraphon into Pitari playing his Ideneth Deepkin with a load of Morsar Guard, the classic offensive eels. And Ideneth Deepkins come out with the victory.
Which is no mean feat, because Forgive's a formidable player, and he's running a slightly wacky Seraphon list, but it's still a Seraphon list. At the end of AOS 2, we thought that maybe IDK and maybe even Ogres were the answers for Fangs of Sotek and Seraphon. And I guess Batari's just proved that that's still the case in AOS 3, being able to block a lot of the shooting by putting, just a throwaway unit with, what's that ability called?
Forgotten Nightmares, I think. Yeah,
that's the one where you have to shoot the nearest target, and then obviously he had the output to get through the... And the speed, I think, is key to get really on top of them, and I think a lot of Seraphon lists are quite vulnerable to a aggressive double turn, aren't they?
I think particularly the loss of old Croak. Croak was definitely one of those crutches for Seraphon players in the bad matchups. Like, you could lose a lot of stuff and still have him at the back and be able to threaten killing a lot of your opponent's army if you got a double turn, right? A double turn with Croak against IDK could kill like 4 or 5 units of 3 eels, right? So
yeah, definitely.
So not having that threat anymore, I think is really a big blow to them, isn't it?
Yeah. So Atari also swimming up river to the top of the leaderboard, around the top 5. I'm quite good at this, aren't I? Right.
Nice.
Nice. Table 5, our champion Darion Dardar versus another champion, Miles and his Gargants. We'll put a little caveat on this list. Both of these players got their 20 O's on round 1 due to dropouts or forfeits or things like that. So it was nice to see them matched up for a fair chance. And the Dread Saurian didn't do it. It didn't do it. It got battered. It got absolutely garganted.
Yeah, if you compare it to a Mega Gargant, it's not very good, is it?
It's not. And Miles had 3. Miles had 3 big Mega Gargants. There's still some, it's still a surf on this. There's still some punch. There's still Carnosaurs that can do some damage. There's still the Stegodon. Doesn't have a Slan in this list, does he? No. But he's still got the Bearer.
As you and I were saying the other day, Luke, I love that the Dardar just plays the absolute filth in some tournaments, and then we'll just rock up with a Dread Saurian in other tournaments like that. I can get behind that.
Jekyll and Hyde. Someday he wants to win the tournament, someday he wants to win the Wooden Spoon. And good luck to him on his quest to win the Wooden Spoon at this tournament. But we love to see the Dread Saurian. It's just not very good.
No, it's like the old Chaos War Mammoth, isn't it?
Oh, everyone loved that thing. Oh.
But yeah, the huge MDF base size, right, where you couldn't move out of your deployment zone under certain terrain setups is a problem, right?
Right, we'll move on to a game that we do have a bit more information about. A Titan Death-Off. We had AOS Tubbs and his OBR versus Matt Tyrrell and his Soulblight. How did this game go, Stuart?
Well, I think Matt Tyrrell's list just had a bit too much output for the OBR to deal with, and the fact that his army can play AOS 3 is always nice, isn't it?
This was very much an Iron Wall versus an Unstoppable Force sort of list. We had AOS Tubbs going for the defensive side of things with his Petrifex, Ignoring Non-Rend, Wall of Mortek Guard with Arcan Healing, versus Matt Tyrrell's Prince Vordryan 40 Graveguard trying to punch through, and they were obviously able to punch through. We did have some Matt messaged us after the game and told us how he was able to punch through. He had, I think one of the highlights of that game was it was either 8 Graveguard killed 17 fully buffed up Mortek Guard, rerolling ones to hit, +1 attack from the Manfred, range for the +1 to wound, exploding 6s from Belladama. This is all about stacking buffs and just getting that damage to ridiculous levels. And I think that's actually a legitimate way to play in AOS 3, because I think being able to do 100 damage or something like that wouldn't actually get you too far in AOS 2. It's like, great, that's a bit of overkill. Where in AOS 3, we've been seeing those really high damage units doing well, haven't we?
Yeah, and I think I look at Soulblight Gravelords and a lot of the chaffy sort of screening units. I think you're going to lose to a lot of other chaff and screening units that are in the game. So
and they're really aggressively costed. Let's look at that battle line section here. 20 Graveguard, which is a huge threat, 280 points. 20 Dreadwalkers, which is obviously not as much of a threat, but can still do a little bit of work and a little bit of 6-inch piling tricks. Only 115 points for 20 models. Looking like good value, aren't they, on their battle line and their screen units?
Well, it does look like amazing value if you just go into War Scroll Builder and put in, 10 units of 20 zombies, and you're like, oh, look, I have 20 zombies. But they will lose the chaff war with other opposing chaff, and so if you're playing like a big hero hammer battery, so let's say Matt's list here, instead of having the 2 units of 20 Graveguard, he had, how many zombies would fit in there? Like 5 more units of 20 zombies, right? So he had 120 zombies. What would happen in a lot of his matchups, and I think especially against the OBR, is that screen of zombies would lose to his opponent's screens, like lose to the opposing Mortec, and then he would just have his monsters and his opponents would have the screens, right? But if you ditch the screens and just play with 2 units of just 20 slapping infantry, your opponent's screens are going to be dead, and you're still going to have the 2 units of 20 Graveguard to both screen your monsters and be able to do stuff. So
I think the Graveguard are like a bit of a dual unit where they're only 280 points, so Matt's not going to be too sad if they simply screen and take a hit and allow Prince Vordry to clean up the mess, or they're a threat in themselves. So it's sort of this unit that you can just bring up through the grave sites, plonk forward, and I know that in this game he had really pinned Tubbs in his deployment zone. I was able to join for 5 minutes, and the whole fight was in Tubbs' deployment zone for pretty much the whole game. It really pinned him in. And Tubbs didn't have the output to take down the threats, and Matthew Tyrrell won the grind. I know that we had a Mortark fight at some point in the game. We had Arcan versus Manfred, and Manfred walloped Arcan, doing 15 damage after saves and death saves, so was able to one-shot him with all of his exploding 6s. He got a bit lucky with there, but Mortark fight goes to Manfred.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, Manfred does have the +1 to hit and wound.
Yeah.
So he's going to be better in combat than Arcan, but yeah, probably shouldn't do 15 damage. But that does happen.
Yeah, I think he said he got exploding 6s off, and he went a bit crazy with them, with rolling like 4 or 5 6s. But it works. It did the trick, and AOS Tubbs still a hero for running OBR in AOS 3, but got 20 0'd by Matt, who's I think finding himself in second place at the moment.
Yeah, well deserved. I like the list that just has a bunch of combat threats in the current meta game when people are running 3 big monsters and then a bunch of screens. I really like the multi-threat list, I think. And yeah, just with the 20 Graveguard, like the important thing to know is when you're running a list like this that can actually kill your opponent's units, it's not really 20 Graveguard. It's really 20 Graveguard that become 10 later, because you're going to be able to get that roll at the end of the turn in Soulblight Gravelords that brings the unit back. You're going to be able to get that on like a 3-up rather than just rolling the 5-up every time. So the 20 Graveguard can pretty reliably come back in a list like this that has a lot of threats after the Graveguard die. So that's another good aspect to this list. Yeah.
Yeah, because in both games so far we've seen the Graveguard just quote unquote yeet in, just go straight in and take out the damage that they can, and then he uses the other monsters and the zombies to score objectives and clean up the mess. So well done there to Matt Tyrrell.
Okay, and then the next one we had a draw, so another draw for the event. And this was Damien must
not
be
as
running.
rare as you were saying, Stuart.
No, and I've seen it happen a lot around the world as well, so I'm obviously wrong, apparently. I think so. Damien was running IDK, and Tobias was running Cities of Sigmar list with Gotrek and a load of Iron Drakes.
Gotrek, Iron Drakes, Huracanum, and the Frostheart Phoenix, sorry. And then not a lot else. 2 units of 10 Longbeards and some Rune Lords. Quite, a lot of the units that he's chosen here are really expensive units, with the Phoenix, Gotrek, and Iron Drakes being the majority of his points. And it was able, this is a shooting list, and it was able to take down the IDK. Do we reckon Gotrek did God's work in this list?
I do like him more in this sort of list than I do in Gotrek Marathi with Bow Snakes, because you're running quite a castly list, so having the little ginger dude to protect your castle is quite good, I think.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much how this plays. It sits back, shooting with the Longbeards. He's got the Soul Screen Bridge, so we can reach out to a key point and take out the heart of an opponent's army. And then Gotrek's going to really punish anyone that's going to want to aggressively alpha strike or come and try and get those Iron Drakes. Well done to Tobias.
Well, it was a draw, Luke.
Oh shit, yeah.
So well done to both of them. Yeah.
And well done to Damien.
Yeah.
Cool. Table 8, we've got Ben, Exalted Len, the WWE memester, versus AZ and his Ogres. And we got, Ben was running his Vanguard, his Karen Guard list versus AZ's Ogres, and the Ogres came out on top.
Yes, now I did play this matchup a bunch in AOS 2, and that was with 1 Metal Cruncher, and it was fairly manageable, I think, for the Ogres to take down the Vanguard. But now that you've got an extra 1 or 2, AZ's got 1 extra in his list, I think that really helps you deal with the Vanguard, because they're so vulnerable to mortal wounds.
Yeah, and I think this was a game of priority rolls where the AZ was able to win all 4 of the priority rolls that they rolled. 3 Frost Lords, just smashing on to his units, and he only had 1 threat versus the AZ's 3. So the Karen Guard couldn't be everywhere on the board, where 3 Stonehorns certainly can. He was able to pin him back, play around the 8-inch Demon Prince half-charge bubble. I think if you've got movement like 10 or above, the Demon Prince suddenly becomes a lot less scary, because you can just sort of walk up into 3 inches away, and then you still have to roll a 6-inch charge, but that's still fairly manageable with a reroll, isn't it?
Yeah, well, especially in Ogres, because the Frost Lord has a command ability that can give reroll charges to everything wholly within 12 of him in the charge phase. So if you got 3 Frost Lords just 3 inches away, all of them are going to get reroll charges. So it's pretty manageable.
Pretty manageable, and I think that's what happened. He pinned the Slaves of Darkness back in his territory, and then that was it, really. He just pinned him back, took out his key threats. The Karen Guard were fighting the Stonehorns. I know he wasn't really able to take down the Stonehorns quickly enough. With all-out defense, that 2-up, ignoring 1 rend Stonehorn with a 5-up ward, that's a golden standard of a big monster that you're going to need to take down, isn't it? And that's easier said than done.
They're big boys. Yeah, they're going to take a long time to kill. I'll talk about it later, but in the game that I played, like my Stonehorn went down to 2 wounds and then went back up to 13 again. Both access to heroic recovery and the more pot being able to be placed in a better spot, I think really has pushed Ogres up quite a bit.
Yep, so that pushes AZ up to a 2-0 on his Ogres, and Exalted Len going down to a 1-1, which is still respectable with his Slaves of Darkness list. So, shall we move on, Stuart? Who we got?
We got Asura, who's playing Khorne, what a legend, versus this guy called Luke Willoughby.
Who's that fella?
So tell us about your game, Luke.
Stuart. This is my game. This is my game, and by God, it was definitely a game. So I was playing my Gargants versus Azura's Khorne. I was quite confident going into this matchup, and the headline is that I tabled him on the top of my turn 3. Luke, why have you only got a 12-8 victory if you tabled someone in 2 turns? What are you playing at? Scar fucking Bloodwrath, everyone. Can we just talk about that guy? So Azura, an absolute champion. I tabled him on turn 3. I was, would have expected any other player to go, okay, let's talk it through, add up the points, and he goes, no, I've got some stuff I can do here. I've got some victory points that I can get. And he needed some miracle dice rolls to get them off, but he had the balls to do it, and he got those dice rolls. So what he was able to do is he had taken a Gargan down in the scrum in the middle, but the scrum in the middle definitely came out with me on top, tabled his whole army, and he literally had nothing apart from 5 Summon Flesh Hounds on the board on his turn 3. And then what he proceeded to do was roll his 8 to get Scar Bloodbath back, teleport him right into the corner on an objective, an uncontested objective, to get the point there. Summoned some Blood Crushers with all the Blood type points that he had. Rolled a 10-inch charge to get the Blood Crushers into my liability of a Man Crusher, and took him down to bring him down. And then got the priority roll after that to get another battle tactic, and basically changed the result from a 20-0 into a 8-12. So this is a really conversation about late game summoning and the new battle tactics, and how even though if you're tabled or you're losing the game, you've got to keep playing on because there's still a lot to play for. Hats off to Azura. He saw the 1 in a million chance he had to get some victory points. He took it, and it paid off for him. So a bit frustrating for me, but well done to Azura, and great opponent. Great game, really. I know a lot of people watching were really excited when Scar Bloodbath was just popping up and taking down that Man Crusher by summoning in some red dudes on bigger red dudes. It's also a conversation about the Man Crusher. We've talked a lot about it, Stuart. How do you feel about Man Crushers in Sons of Behemat?
They're not good. Yeah, that's the headline.
They're really not.
I think we were all hoping in AOS 3 that the non-hero monsters would get a bit better, but they got worse somehow. So, yeah, you're one monster that's sitting there.
The reason why they're bad.
Yeah.
The reason why they're bad is that they're just an easy bring it down. So that's all that Azura had to do. Was he had a chance to teleport and send a unit in and try and take down this Man Crusher. And it's just an easy target, and he got like 6 victory points out of it because he was able to kill a monster, bring it down, stop me on the objective, take the objective off me, and then he got, and they're just a liability. I'd honestly rather not have him in my list, but I have to because of the battle line. Very rarely, every now and then, you can use them like a unit of Aether Wings and get the bait. You can bait out like a monster to come and get the Man Crusher for easy points, and then clear up with your big monsters, which is quite a good use of him. But in lots of other games like this, he's just simply an out for opponents. He's just an easy battle tactic, and he always gives the opponents a battle tactic to try and get. I think that's the end of the story there. I'm a bit bitter about this because I thought I could have had a 20-0, but I've got my 12 victory points. I'm still on 2-0, and I had a fantastic game against Azura, so I'm looking forward to round 3. And good luck to him for the rest of the event as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good lesson in knowing how to use your assets in the late game and knowing how to play your army. Like Azura's been playing Khorne for a really long time and knows the army well, and being able to see when you can get a few points back or possibly even eke out a victory, even though it looks like you got nothing on the board, is, I think, a huge part of getting better at Age of Sigmar and improving your win rate.
Oh, Azura, absolute champion of Khorne here, and I just want to quickly talk about Khorne. If their War Scrolls were good, these are amazing allegiance abilities. Obviously having to think about, he can summon this, he can double move that, he can hero phase fight this. They have a lot of tools at their disposal. They're a toolbox army. They've just got really small spanners, don't they, with their War Scrolls? But they've got a lot of tools. So I think if we see the book retain a lot of the tricks in its new edition, but have some slightly improved War Scrolls, we're looking at a much better army.
Well, the meme is that Khorne is techie, right? That's the classic meme. Like, don't underestimate the techiness of Khorne. And the word techie, if you actually look it up in the dictionary, Luke, what it actually means is strong allegiance abilities, but shit stats. That's basically what it means, right? So, if anyone says something, I've got a techie list, it means the War Scrolls are bad, but there's some good abilities in there. That's actually really what it means. So, if Khorne had good War Scrolls, it would just be good, not techie. That's basically where we're at, right?
Absolutely. We'll move on to Artyom Seraphon versus Dennis's something. Zeech? Slaves of Darkness? Soul Blight?
Oh, this is Seraphon. Yep.
Seraphon mirror match. Okay. Sorry, Dennis. I should have known your list. Yep. So we had Seraphon versus Seraphon here. I think Artyom he kept on with Croak, and I don't think Dennis did have Croak. So it was in this list, Croak prevailed in this matchup.
Yeah, Dennis is the one that croaked. You know. Thank you.
Cool.
All right.
We don't have too much to say about this game. We know that Artyom is a top player on part of the Angry Alpaca crew that's been tearing up events in AOS 2. So he was able to edge the win over Dennis there, and he's in good stead for round 3. So good luck to him, and good luck to Dennis as well. Right.
Okay. Table 11. Yeah, so we had a friend of the show, Tubbs, against Codron, who was running Slaves to Darkness with Archeon, right? And
yep, so we had Control versus Archeon, basically.
Yes, and there's been a couple other results lower down the standings that have kind of conformed to this, that big monster X versus Control, possibly involving a certain Demon Prince. Usually the Demon Prince seems to be winning out so far, right?
Yeah, so Tubbs didn't actually fill me in too much on this game. He normally fills me in a lot better than he did previously. But it was a close game. It was only 13-7. I think Tubbs got some of the priority roles that he needed and was able just to basically feed Archeon some screens. At some point, Archeon bounced off 5 Chaos Knights. I think Archeon did like 3 damage to the Chaos Knights that were on their 2-up save, ignoring a couple of rend with their 5-up Mortal Wound Shrug. And once Archeon bounced, he really loses a lot of momentum. He's definitely a momentum piece that you want to keep rampaging through your opponent's army. So a moment like that in the game where he just bounces can prove really pivotal and can probably cost you the game, which I think it did for Codron here.
Yeah, he's not very good at killing units that are really tanky that he can't put in the sword, right? Because at the end of the day, he's only got -2 rand, which in the past would have been plenty enough to get through your classic 3-up save unit, because they might be on a max of 5s or rolling 1s, right? But, you know, the Chaos Knights are only on a 4-up save, but they got reroll 1s from Zinch, and I believe in this situation they were a +3 save, so even the Rend -2, they would still be on 3s rerolling 1s against the sword. So yeah, I think he said that Archeon did 5 damage to the Chaos Knights, so that killed 1 and a bit.
5 damage.
Yeah. So that just really shows that I think kind of a classic weakness of Archeon at killing those units, like, you know, 5 Blood Knights or something like that, has probably gotten a bit worse in this edition. He still doesn't have access to Rend, really. So I guess the way around that might be to include a double pile-in. But then again, in this situation, you know, let's say he got 5 damage twice, it still wouldn't have been enough to get through the Chaos Knights. And so Archeon still was going to struggle to get through a lot of troops, right?
Yes, but I think this is why we've seen, you know, Codron's running him in slaves, but in his Zinch list, where Archeon obviously is finding his top table home, he's got the mortal support that you get from the Zinch spells, from the Kairos chucking 6 mortal wounds through the spell portal, and a lot of other tricks that you can get to remove or reduce the impact that these 2-up unmendable screens can have, I think. So Alex Tubbs showing that the true way to play slaves is with the Control Knights, Demon Prince, and another thing we wanted to quickly talk about in this matchup is that obviously Alex had the spellcasting advantage in this matchup because of his Cabalists, where he was able to sacrifice models and get pluses to cast. And I think in this matchup that probably came in really key, being able to get the bonuses to dispel against Codrin's spell. So I don't think Codrin was able to get a teleport off because of that, and Tubbs was able to sort of do what he wanted with his spells. I really like the Cabalist pick over the 6 circle pick here. I think that's what was able to secure the win for Alex Tubbs.
Alright, And then the next game we have another Archeon matchup. So nice that they're right next to each other, so we can talk about them. So Joel Graham playing Zincha Archeon with instead of the Kairos Archeon build, it's the 5 small wizards running around the big man, summoning him a load of stuff.
Engine.
Yeah,
the summoning engine is what I'm calling it.
Versus Nikita's
V8 of an engine. Yeah.
Nikita's Soulblight Gravelords, just complete nightmare of a list. Which I said at the start of the list start of the tournament was like one of my favorite Soulblight Gravelords lists. So to contrast it with what Matt Tyrrell was running before. So Matt Tyrrell, you had a load of combat threats, right? And Nikita's gone, I have no combat threats, but can you get through with this? He's got 3 units of 5 Blood Knights and 2 units of 30 skeletons, and some dogs. And a couple heroes and Manfred, I believe. That's the list. And it's a lot of stuff to get through. I think it's like 167 wounds, I think, by memory.
Yeah, that's right. And this game was an absolute grind, an absolute marathon of a grind as well. There's a few moments, I think Joel got unlucky with some of his dice and wasn't able to kill 30 skeletons. He bounced off some skeletons, and they all came back and bogged Archeon down for a considerable amount of time, meaning he didn't get his objective and didn't get his battle tactic because he was unable to kill 30 skeletons with his Archeon, which was, I think, he got a bit unlucky on, but that goes to show that a big sticky tar pit like those skeletons can actually win you those games. And Archeon couldn't be everywhere at once, and Joel's list certainly doesn't have the output to deal with the other unit of 30 skeletons on the other objective, or the Blood Knights that are running around trying to threaten his objectives. And Nikita was able to grind it out for a 10-10, 1 point, edging it over Joel for a 10-10 win.
Yes, now, it's an interesting discussion here, Luke, but do we think that future armies are going to possess the late game reach that these two armies have? Because this game, for those who don't know, went for about 6 hours or so, which is obviously not great. But I think part of the reason for that is that both armies, it's really hard to tell where the current game state is at because the late game in both of their armies is just so strong. You've got the continuous
Joel's
summoning back.
Summoning blues.
Yeah.
Joel's going to be summoning blues, and the skeletons are going to keep coming back. So it's the never-ending armies, isn't it?
Yeah. So I mean, personally, I'm hoping in the future that this kind of thing goes away a little bit. You know, considering everything's got a whole lot more durable with bonuses to save in the core rules from all-out attack and finest hour and stuff like that, you would hope that they would reduce the amount of late-game summoning in the game. But yes,
I saw how strong that was in my game against Azura, able to get those extra victory points here. And when you've got 2 lists that can do it, it creates for a bit of a marathon. But I know these two went through this 6-hour game in goodwill, and they came out smiling at the end of it. Probably a bit tired, but still smiling, and a good result for them both, really, all things considered. So, good game there.
Okay. And then next one we had Constantine with the triple metal cruncher Bonanza versus Nicus Roselius, who I believe is running Stormcast, is that right?
No, he's got his KO.
KO, that's right.
Nico Lunch's homebrew Skyport that he runs with his Endrin Riggers trying to heal up his Ironclad.
That's right, yep.
And we did get a little bit of a rundown on this game, I think.
I mean, the question we asked last week was, you're playing against this list that has all the healing for the Ironclad. Can you one-hit the Ironclad? And if I just go to Constantine's list, the answer is yes. Yes, you can. So
yeah, this guy's got output.
Yeah, like, I mean, look at this. 3 metal crunches. I mean, other armies have been doing this for years, stacking gruesome bites with Terrorgeist. I'm just enjoying the 2 weeks we have left of this, probably before it gets fixed in the FAQ, where we can run 3 metal crunches.
Yeah. I think it's a loophole, but loopholes are there to be exploited whilst they're there. So Constantine was able to win by getting the KO player to come towards him, which is obviously what the KO player has to do because they're whilst they can teleport, the range of all their output is actually only like 12 or 18 inches. So they do need to get danger close. He shot everything, so all the KO army went into his warlord, into his Stonehorn general, and wasn't able to take it down. I played a game against KO recently, a pickup game, where he did something similar, put his whole army into a Mega Gargant and wasn't able to take it down. And at that point, the KO lists look a bit silly, don't they? And then what happened was his 3 Stonehorns ran into his whole army and killed 2 boats in one go, and his balloon, or his dirigible suit, and then it looks pretty hard to come back through there. So that's the story of this game. It was the story of my game that I played against KO, which I think why B Timmy's more static gun line KO list is the one doing well, and these more traditional KO boat lists can struggle against some of these big combat monster lists that we're seeing in the meta at the moment.
Well, and importantly as well, the Iron Drakes can get neg 2 rend, right? Which...
Yeah, a lot of the KO shooting's only neg 1, which doesn't do a lot against the 2-up, say, Frostlord.
Yeah, so if the Frostlord can just go, when you pick the battle tactic, I'm going to bring it down, or say the Warlord on the Stonehorn, he can just go Finest Hour and then click all out defense in the shooting phase, and all your rend 1 stuff is going to be against a 2-up save now. So that's where you really want the rend 2. Yeah,
that's how it went in this game, definitely. Yeah, well, I think in my game against KO, we had a chat afterwards, and we're like, they really lack the rend and mortal wounds. They have everything else. They've got the mobility, they've got the tricks, but they just don't have the output in their current guys, which is why we're seeing those allied Iron Drakes in. Well done to Constantine. So he's proving that ogres are doing really well in this tournament, and I think the next game shows that too. What you got next, Stuart?
So this game, I continued my streak of winning every priority role. I did lose one in this game, so I'm currently 7 out of 8. And the one that I lost, he actually gave me the turn because he couldn't recast Portal. Yeah, that dynamic was actually quite interesting in this game, and it's one thing to kind of note about playing against Nagash, right? So when he puts the spell portal down,
yeah. Go through Rob's list very quickly.
Yeah, so Rob had he was running Soulblight Gravelords with Nagash, in Vrykos Dynasty with a Vampire Lord, Necromancer, 3 units of 10 Skeletons, 20 Graveguard, and some Bats, as well as Portal, and I was running the usual Yeti hoedown with Frostlord on Stonehorn, Frostlord on Thunder Tusk, some little wizards, a guy and his dog, and some goblins, and then a bunch of units of 3 Yetis. So, I mean, on the board, it does look a little bit strange, but I mean, basically what happened in this game, I think, is Rob did the right thing. He gave me the first turn, and his plan was, I think, to run Nagash as far forward as possible so he could be in the middle, so that he could be in range to Hand of Dust through the portal, possibly on the double turn, and then kill the Stonehorn, and then in the movement phase move towards the other monster and kill that, and so that way he'd mitigate a bit of my threats. But unfortunately he didn't win the turn into 2, and I was able to basically take off everything other than Nagash on the table, and then Nagash had to deal with a bunch of MSU units. My list has something like 16 different separate units, so if you're playing something like Nagash that can really only kill a couple of units at a time, it just takes ages to get through all of them. And on the more spread battle plan of Power Struggle as well, that was a huge advantage for my list. Yeah, I will say with Umbral Spell Portal and Nagash, the problem with it is, so let's say you cast Portal, and either the Hand of Dust is dispelled, or Hand of Dust, you don't roll the 4-up, or, if you're actually doing it in real life, you don't get the pick out of the hand thing. I can't remember what it is, I haven't played it in real life. Then you're stuck there with your Portal, right? And you can't dispel it and recast it on the same turn, so that if you then get the double, you're not going to be able to have another go at Hand of Dust. And so that's why Rob had to give me the turn into 4, which is the one priority that he won, is because he had to dispel the spell portal in my hero phase and then cast it again in his own hero phase. So when you're playing against Nagash, I think knowing that if he fails Dust, so if you got an auto unbind or something to make sure he fails it, that's great. But otherwise, if he doesn't roll the 4-up, then he's not really going to be able to take the double turn if he has the opportunity for it, because he's not going to be able to do it again. And you kind of actually need the double turn, I think, with Nagash to get through a list like mine that has so many different units. But, I mean, as a general summary of this game, I would just say that, like we were saying before, if you have, chaff that doesn't really do anything in combat and your opponent is running something like Yetis, which I think, to be honest, for the points cost are probably a little underpriced in terms of combat output, yeah, you just tend to lose all your chaff, and then you're stuck with your one big monster versus your opponent's entire army, and it's difficult to come back.
I know when I joined in on the game, I think on turn 2, Rob simply had Nagash and 10 skeletons left, and that was just all Drushi or Yetis, basically. I know your Frostlord got pounded down early with some mortal wounds, and was able to heal them back up later in the game, but the Yetis were able just to kill everything else Rob had in the list, and then Nagash wasn't able to do the work that he needed to do, because I think Nagash as a god piece in the middle is more scalpel damage, isn't he? He's more precise with his damage. He's a high level of mortal wounds, and he's got quite a lot of output, but it's more high damage output that he can get into one place. He's not the big hammer that like Archaon or Kragnos is he?
No, he's he's got a lot of the high amount of mortals rather than especially Archaon has got a lot of actually fairly crappy attacks. Like the heads are just 3/3 neg1 2 damage, but if you're trying to kill a load of stuff like Yetis, you'd prefer to have Archaon's profile than the I guess the can opener archetype, which would be Nagash's archetype.
I do know you had a special little moment in your game as well that we want to quickly talk about.
Oh, okay, yeah. So this is another episode, and Stuart just big brains himself and just does something really stupid and then has an epic moment. So I like. So I have Frothgorn in my list, which allows you to place a trap on a terrain feature not wholly within your opponent's territory. And on this map, there were two big, I can't remember what they're called.
Stormcast temples, aren't they?
Yeah. The big square Sigmarite terrain pieces that have pillars that don't do anything. Anyway, so I put my trap on one of those, thinking that if he moved on it with his Graveguard, which was sitting near it, that he would take D6 mortal wounds if he was trying to come into me. Now, so I got the turn, which meant that I wanted to charge into the Graveguard and take them out with the 4 units of 3 Yetis and the Thunder Tusk that I had there. But I didn't want to take D6 mortal wounds on something. And I had one goblin left from the previous turn that I think 3 fell bats failed to kill. And what I did is that wasn't 3 fell bats. I think it was Nagash's Arcane Bolts, I think, didn't quite kill the 3 goblins. It was something like that. Anyway, I had one goblin left, and he was 10.9 inches away from the terrain feature, so I spent a command point and ran him 6 onto the terrain feature to blow up his trap. He had to roll a 1 to live, but he didn't. I rolled, I think, a 4, so that the trap activated, and then I rolled a 6. So he took 6 mortal wounds from his own trap and then died, a hero, saving me 1.5 Yetis.
Like the minefield clearer. He comes in with his little metal detector, running in, and blows himself to high heaven, clearing the way for his Yeti friends. What a moment.
Yes, and Rob was reminding me that I just spent 2 command points on a unit that I was raving had so much value. So, that wasn't very clever. But anyway. I think at the moment that I did that play, it was the right play. And that's all that matters, isn't it, Luke?
Well done, Stuart. You managed to get your 14-6 win here. So you're finding you're managing to get the wins with the Yetis, but you're not getting those 20-0s or 19-1s, are you? You're getting like 14 points each. You think you got 14 points last time, didn't you?
Yes, I'm on 28. I got 14 and then 14 again. My list just can't do enough damage. Like, I can't table my opponent or something. But against other melee armies, I don't think I'm in a huge danger of losing the game. It'd just be a low point win, I think.
Yeah. Going from low point wins onto 20-0 smashes. Table 15, we've got Will Potter and his brave Bone Splitters versus the Terror, Alan and his Seraphon. And this was the first game of round 2. It even happened slightly before we did the show for round 1. And we just saw it pop up on the Discord, be like, oh no, I've been smashed by Alan. Rip. And I think that's the story here, isn't it? Alan's 4 Carnosaurs just chewed through a load of Bone Splitters without any armor. Because that's what Carnosaurs like to do.
Now, we were talking about this afterwards, Luke. Now, in the fluff, Bone Splitters are supposed to be monster hunters, right? And in their elite abilities, they have monster hunting abilities. But they are terrible at killing monsters. They have no rend and barely any mortals. So, yep. They're not monster hunters.
This was, I think, a bit of a savage game. I think it was just a double turn smash. See you later. Good night. Poor Will, because he did so well to get the win against Seraphon last time. Poor fella. He's trying to rock up with his Bone Splitters, and he gets 2 Seraphons for the first 2 rounds. So I hope Will does a bit better with some matchups going into round 3. And of course, Alan sat there where he usually is, towards the top end of the leaderboard. So, good game for them both.
I would say, just on a side note and a reference to a previous show, that Alan has been vindicated in choosing not to take Amulet of Destiny because it would have just been ignored in this matchup because Will Potter was running Dragfoot. There you go. So he was right all along.
I mean, Alan's always right. I don't doubt that man for a second. Right. Table 16, Antu and his Marathi Gotrek Filth versus DLF. I'm going to call him Dilf because that's funny. Dilf and his IDK. Another 20-0 blowout. I think IDK have some of the tools that they have, to deal with the bow snakes and being able to stop them from shooting the key targets. However, they really struggle against Marathi and Gotrek, and I think Marathi and Gotrek were the ones that were able to get Antu the victory here. I know he messaged me and he said that it was an uphill battle for the IDK, and that there was a few risky plays that they could have done, but they didn't take those opportunities, and it meant that Antu was able to secure his 20-0 victory.
Okay, and then next up we have Philip Kartev versus Caius, and I believe so. Philip Kartev is playing Legion of the First Prince with all your fun control pieces, and then Caius is playing, I believe this is the Maw Crusher and Kragnos, right?
That's right, in Iron Jaws.
Yeah, so I think a rather unfortunate matchup, given that Philip Kartev's list really targets those combat-oriented monsters with Be'lakor, Kairos, and the Khorne Demon Prince.
Yep. So, Philip mashed up against Iron-Tide Stonehorns in round 1. Was able to get the win, but it was a much closer game. In this one, Caius only had Kragnos and his Maw Crusher really doing his main threats, and Philip was just able to control them. He was able to Be'lakor. I think he got the double turn Be'lakor, so I think Kragnos did nothing for 2 turns, and the Maw Crusher was able to just get tied up on pinks, and he was able to redeploy, so he couldn't make the charge because of the halving charges from the Slaves to Darkness Demon Prince, and was able just to control the board, get all the points, not really kill much of Caius' army, but just stall him and stop him, denying him getting his battle tactics. And that's definitely how Philip's list plays, and it's proving to be decisive.
Okay, and then next up we had Orkman versus Anthony Feith Johnson in the classic Khorne Slanesh showdown.
Yeah. So, if you were to overview how Slanesh are, would you describe them as a tanky army? No, you wouldn't, would you, Stuart? So this is a story of one man Scarbrand and his "Can I table a whole army?" And the answer is yes.
If it's
Scarbrand
Slanesh.
popped off this game. Yeah. If it's Slanesh.
If it's
Scarbrand
Slanesh.
popped off.
Yeah.
Scarbrand popped off and just removed pretty much all of Thief's army. I think that's the story. So Orcman's got Scarbrand, he's got Reapers of Vengeance, so Scarbrand can double pile in. He's got the Boomthirster, he's got the Unfettered Fury for the 6-inch pile in, so Scarbrand can be 6-inch piling in. And then there's the Demon Prince as well for a little bit of control, and then some dudes. And that was able to take out Thief's some dudes quite convincingly, I think.
Yeah, I think Orcman's list is quite interesting. It's probably quite a bit better than maybe it looks for someone who played in AOS 2.
I think a lot of output here. There's genuinely a lot of output here. Yeah.
So versus something like Gargants or even my list with the Stone Horns, I think Scarbrand really comes into his element for killing those kind of really tanky monsters that maybe necessarily don't have a huge protection against mortal wounds.
Yeah, well, I mean, Orcman's on the same number of points as me going into round 2, and I'm actually a little bit worried about potentially getting him in the matchup because Scarbrand can quite easily one-shot Kragnos and quite easily one-shot something else, and he's got screens and I don't, so he's probably going to be able to get the charge off with Scarbrand. So I'm actually a little bit scared of Orcman in his corn here, not to be underestimated.
It's worth noting as well that he's comprehensively given up on the priests, which is probably fair enough.
Yeah, I think priests overall in AOS 3 just got a huge nerf because a lot of the priests that you had, a lot of the slaughter priests, the fire slayers, rune smiters, the reason why they were good is because they had so many options to multi-prayer. They could do their war scroll prayer and a lore prayer and an endless prayer, and now that's just gone in the bin. And they don't seem to be worth their points at the moment, a lot of the priests. So Orcman really leaning in just to the demon damage that he can get for Reapers of Vengeance and a few screening units, and it's worked out well for him. We said before, Stuart, that we think 3 big monsters and min battle line is actually a viable way to play AOS 3, and that's exactly what Orcman has done.
Yep. Just with the priest thing, Luke, though. I mean, you got to remember that, okay, so a skink priest is a priest, but he doesn't pray.
Yeah.
So those sorts of priests
That's
are good right now.
Still good. Yeah, he's still good.
Like, priests that have a prayer on their war scroll that is not a prayer is an ability, so you can do it more than once. So, with, like that skink priest and then another skink priest. And then, because it's not a prayer, you can do a generic prayer from the big rulebook. So you get 2 things off, and then if you're a skink priest, you can use a command ability for +1 to hit, and if you're a warlock, you can then cast a spell. So those ones are good, but the ones that actually have been cleaned up so that their prayers are yeah, I think you're right. They've gotten a lot worse.
Well done to Orcman and his 20-0. Shall we move on?
Okay. All right, MJ
Table 19.
Pegasus, yeah, versus Jonathan Anderson.
So Jonathan Anderson is Poro on Discord, who's a pretty proficient IDK player with his IDK Futh Analyst, I think, versus MJ Pegasus Nalroot Sylvaneth. I think this went the way that everyone was expecting. MJ Pegasus did give it a good go. I know that he's been sticking it out with his Sylvaneth and really trying, but AOS 3 brought about some changes for Sylvaneth. They're able to get their trees down in quite cool ways. But they still have pretty crappy war scrolls and pretty crappy allegiance abilities for the most part. I still think they're really overcosted as well for what you get for them, similar to Slanesh, and IDK are actually a very proficient army and are able just to choose when they get the charges, choose the engagements, and take out the key pieces for MJ Pegasus' list in short order, and that got the 20-0.
Alright, and then we had another Archeon that's gone down, right? So Isaiah Johnson versus Irontide Peter Dixon with the Ogres. And he's done it, Luke. He's done it.
Irontide, this guy, he's given me so much enjoyment so far in this tournament. He got matched up into Philip Kartiev, who is probably a lot of people's favourite to take out the tournament. And he got 7 points off him. And now he's come back in round 2 and got the win against an Archeon of all things. So Peter and his ogres are doing the work. So I have a bit more information about this game. Bearing in mind that Asai Johnson is running Archaon Kairos, an absolute terror. That's a hard list to get mashed into. And Archaon buffed himself up, went in up in the middle objective as you'd expect, and the Kairos was putting spawns into the Mournfang, then being 6 wounds to their key targets for his Boon of Tzeentch ability. Shield of Fate was unbound from the Ogre Wizards, which meant Archaon was probably a bit more vulnerable. And then Ogre turn 2, half the army charged into Archaon. He just went balls in. He said, I'm going to put half my army into Archaon. He had the Alvagear Ancient Thundertusk, so he was going last, which I think is such a great play. If you're going to multi-charge Archaon, making Archaon fight last with Alvagear Ancient. And he was able to bring him down. He lost Archaon turn 2, thanks to the Ogre charge. He did the Mortals on the charge, Alvagear Ancient to fight last, and all of the combined arms of the Ogres were able to bring the big man down. So I think Ironside saw the I think so. He charged in, did the damage, and then on round 2 was when he actually brought Archaon down. So that's when Alvagear Ancient kicks in on round 2. But so Ironside did well there, I think. And despite Archaon going down on turn 2, Asai managed to get himself 7 tournament points by scrabbling around with Kairos, doing a bit of summoning and getting battle tactics and stuff. But pretty dominant performance from the Ogres. Can we just quickly talk about Ogres? Because I know that in your rundown you did an Honest War game and you said you thought they might not be in a great place in their S3. But here they are, Stuart, tearing it up at this tournament.
Yeah, so I don't think there's a single Ogres lost this round, right? That's right, isn't it? Yeah.
No, that's right, yeah.
And I mean, I would say 4 of them are running very similar lists, right? With the Stonehorns, and just sort of different seasoning. Like Peter Dixon here, Ironside has got the Huskard and Thundertusk with the Alvagear Ancient. And then some of them have got Throthgorn, some of them have got Stonehorn Beast Riders instead of Mournfang. Those sorts of things. But I would say the Frostlord and Stonehorn is really just the common factor going through there. And in all of my games, he hasn't died yet. That's all of my games in AOS3, not just this tournament. And I think the buffs to the Moorpot as well as Heroic Recovery have made a unit like that possibly a little oppressive. And there's a conversation about whether he's a bit underpriced, especially compared to other things in the army.
The golden nugget in that battle tome, isn't he?
Yeah, I think you would struggle to build an Ogre list without a Frostlord and Stonehorn. Like, you really would feel like you may be 300 points down. He sort of feels like what it used to feel like when you had the Ethereal Amulet, where it used to be probably worth about 800 points in the context of the rest of the army. And now he's probably worth that if you got one of him. I would say there's probably slightly diminishing returns once you got multiple of them, because you can't use, multiple heroic actions in the same turn. So you're only going to be getting, one of the heroic recoveries per turn, or one of the Happy Tuesdays per turn. But he's still very tanky for his points, and obviously access to a load of mortal wounds, which are going to be great in this heavy armor meta.
Yeah, I don't think it's all doom and gloom for Ogres, to be honest. I think the Beastclaw Raider side of things is actually looking pretty good. Pretty good. Shall we move on to table 21, Stuart? We have Maestro and another guy repping the Morathi lists. Morathi, Bosnick, Gotrek, and Wilhelm and his Thunder Lizards. A very close game by the looks of this score.
Yeah, so we did get sent quite a bit about this game, and so what happened is that Wilhelm, playing the Seraphon, took first turn and smashed a lot of the bow snakes into oblivion. Only 4 were left, but Maestro opted to rally in the following few turns, and that brought them back to 8. And he pushed Gotrek and Morathi forward, kind of pinning Wilhelm back in his deployment. And then eventually, once we got to round 3, Marathi went down as she does in round 3, as well as the bow snakes. But yeah, apparently Gotrek just managed to push it through to give Daughters of Cain a very narrow victory at 11-9.
I know Wilhelm has had some rough matchups so far, and he's I think he's done well to get 9 points here. Getting 9 points against a list as strong as Marathi and Gotrek and Bow Snakes is a pat on the back. And I've just want to say it again. I've said it before, but it's really nice seeing the scores to be different than just, oh, here's a 20-0, here's a 19-1. You can really see the story of the game, and you can see that a lot of the effort that the players are putting in, even if they don't get the win. So well done to both of those players. Table 22. The name that I can never say, so I'm going to go for a different approach. FC Orbiter versus Jacob Turner.
Yeah, so this one was Ogre Tribes. Oh, okay, we do have a loss. I lied. Ogre Tribes versus Soulblight Gravelords, and I think it was another close one. And Jacob Turner sent me a lot about this game. So I played him in round 1, and his strategy is usually to ambush the Blood Knights, and F. Corbetta responded well by screening out his back objective really well, so that he couldn't bring on the Blood Knights in an advantageous position. But eventually, Jacob was just able to send his big heroes in, and I think get the victory by kind of dueling it out versus Kragnos and the Stonehorn in the middle.
Yeah, I know FC Orbiter. Oh, that's great. FC Orbiter's got unlucky with his Kragnos. He managed to get a Kragnos charge off onto the monster, hoping to one-shot, I think it was Vordry, and rolled a 7, so did 0 mortal wounds. And then Vordry survived the upcoming combat phase, which Kragnos doesn't normally bounce, but he does have a very small chance of doing so. And he did in this game, which I think cost him the game, but it's still close. 8 points to 12. It was Manfred, not Vordry. I've been corrected. Manfred was able to survive the charge and then teleport away. So that's how he survived.
Yeah, Kragnos did then go kill his Vangorian Lord. But yeah, Manfred, being that annoying little dragonfly, just flies around in the late game cleaning up stuff. And he doesn't. He does a decent amount of damage as well for someone that's, you think he's a buff piece, but he's still a threat in his own right, isn't he? He does decent damage with his +1 to hit and attack and wound and all that stuff he can get on him. The buffs in the Soulblight Gravelords I think are phenomenal. It's definitely a synergy list, isn't it? Jacob's list. Yeah, and with a lot of kind of reach in terms of the damage. Like, he's got a really low floor and a really high ceiling in terms of how much damage his units can do. Like, the Blood Knights can be on, 3s and 3s, neg1 damage with the swords, or they can be on 2s and 2s, neg1 3 damage with the swords, depending on the situation, right?
Night and day. Yeah.
Yes. So you're either an Iron Gut or you are, I don't know, a Witch Elf. That's basically the idea. Yeah.
I know what I'd rather be. I reckon I look good in a bikini. Right, table 23. DJ, Pumpkin Hill and her Trogs versus our man Pask. This game sounded, Pask didn't play nice in this game. I think it was a classic Ogre double turn, and the Trogs just don't have what they need to survive it. I think Pumpkin Hill did tell me a bit about this game. She said that she sort of deployed in a line, hoping to sort of spread Pask out, but Pask sort of went heavy on one flank. He put all of his big juicy monsters on one flank and then a couple of Mournfang on the other, and was able to do that classic Ogre thing of blow up one side and then steamroll across the opponent's lines. And I don't think Trogs, they've got their 5-up ward and everything, but they don't have what they need to survive against that level of output, because there's actually not that many wounds in the Trog army. And the Trog boss went down quite early as well to a Stonehorn charge, and then you're really limited on Battle Shock. Battle Shock really hurts at that point. 16-4 to Pask.
Yeah. And we were talking about it the other day, but maybe the future of Trogs might be like having Kragnos in there or something. The +1 bravery is actually pretty good.
We've got a few lists to look at with Kragnos in Trogs. I think Pumpkin Hill has inspired me to have a... You think Kragnos belongs in Gits, don't you? You've said that to me a few times, so maybe looking at getting Kragnos in those Git lists.
I don't know if it's necessarily that Kragnos belongs in Gits, but Gits really wants Kragnos. You know, they're drumming up all their resources and drawing up a contract, but he's stuck. I think he's probably stuck in Gargants. They've given him a better offer, but the Gits just really want him. You know, big beat stick monster that actually survives something is a bit missing in that army.
When the Warhammer Kragnos transfer window opens, we shall see if Kragnos joins the Gits team. Right, that was weird. Table 24, Perludes versus Chris. So Chris was running his 13 Salamanders craziness, and Perludes I think's running cities. You're going to have to quickly remind me of what Perludes was running.
I think that's right, yeah. Yeah.
Tempest Eye, yep. So he's got all the dwarfs. He's got 20 hammerers, 30 iron breakers, and 20 iron drakes, and a few support heroes. Oh yeah, and an ironclad. Not to forget the ironclad. I think Chris Houston and his Salamanders played against an ironclad last game, and unfortunately drew another one in round 2. The story in round 1 was that he wasn't able to put all his Salamanders in one place to take down the ironclad that's flying around, and I imagine that this went down the same sort of way as that, where the Salamanders weren't able to focus fire that ironclad, and then just got picked apart piece by piece, whilst those iron drakes just blasted. I don't think the Salamanders can actually get through 30 iron breakers or 20 hammerers sat at the front. They don't have the volume of attacks to get through that many bodies, do they?
Yeah, the 30 iron breakers are a big question mark in terms of whether you can kill them. It's 30 wounds on a 3-up save is always nice.
Definitely, and it's still a close game. I think the score was 11-9 in the end. So the Salamanders obviously are able to, you know, an MSU army is always going to be good at getting battle tactics, getting objectives and things like that, but gives away battle tactics too. So 11-9 to Perludes and his cities. Well done there.
Okay.
Right,
yep, go ahead, Luke.
Yeah, Matt Grinney and his defensive Doc Snake list versus Nicholas M and his what they called Stormcast and Gotrek. This guy sends me the funniest rundowns of his games, Stuart. Have you got it to read out?
Hold on, just remind me quickly while I'm finding it. What was in the Stormcast list?
So the Stormcast list, Nick's gone for a lot of the stuff you find in Dominion. So he's got 3 units of 3 Annihilators, which are the big chunky dudes with shields. He's got the Imperatant, the new guy, which allows the deep strike to be done within 7 inches. He's got 3 units of 5 Vindictors, which are the spear Stormcast guys, and he's got Gotrek and a priest as well with Translocate. Before the round, Nick asked us a cool question, and a new little rules thing that we found with Translocate is that the wording has been removed, that you can it counts as your move, so you can move after translocation. So that combined with the fact that the Annihilators can deep strike from 7 away and re-roll their charges meant that he found that he was getting in really quickly with his list. He was able to alpha strike the snakes, and the Annihilators were doing enough work. Matt's list is looking to buff the defensibility of the snakes by giving them -1 damage with the Heart of Fury prayer and the -1 to wound bubble from the Crossed Heart Phoenix that he's got allied in. But Nick was able to punch through it quite convincingly, I think, and get the win with 13-7. But I think the way that Nick plays Gotrek is the funny thing that I'm referencing. Have you found it, or do you want me to read it out?
Yeah, so I've got it here, Luke. So Nick M versus Matt Grinney. Okay, great game against Matt's defensive Doc. Annihilators alpha striked his Shadow Stalkers, killed them. Cauldron went in to clear them off and failed a 3-inch charge with the reroll. Angry Dwarf stood in the midboard and yelled at Murder Snakes for 3 turns. Yep.
Yep. So that's 2 games now when Nick's had Gotrek just run around doing nothing. But he's still area denial. I think that's one way to look at it, Nick. That he's still getting the job done, and no one wants to charge into him. But yeah, Gotrek struggles to get in some places sometimes, doesn't he? If you don't have that delivery system, or what the other lists are doing is trying to get the opponent to come to you. Nick's trying to alpha strike, so he's sending his Stormcast boys forward, deep striking. They're blasting in with bolts of lightning and doing it, and then there's guys just running up behind, yelling.
It does sound like the Annihilators are doing some work for him though, which might be a bit of a preview for things to come in the future.
Yeah. Me and Nick had a little chat after the game, and we thought, because I really like his list, and something I would actually consider running myself, the Annihilators and the Vindictors. I think the new Stormcast looks really cool. But he said we both thought that Yndrasta and maybe Gavriel Shoreheart would be a good replacement for Gotrek in his list, giving that bit of speed with the Yndrasta, that bit of scalpel damage that he needs, and being able to bring back 3 Annihilators a turn with Yndrasta's ability sounds pretty tasty to me. So Nick's still trying out Stormcast, and it'll be interesting to see where he lands with the new book. But he managed to get the win here, so well done to him.
Nice. Okay, so then we got table 27, Raincloud versus Little Tank.
Yep, so Raincloud's running his Nurgle list, and Little Tank's running his Feck. I think Feck were able to do the old, I'm going to push 3 Terrorgeists forward and blow up your Blight Kings. And I think that's the end of the story. We don't have too much information about this game. I would like to know whether this play called Catapult has killed something yet in the tournament.
I was going to say, I want a running tab on how much this play caller has or has not killed in the tournament.
Absolutely. So I don't think it did too much for him this game because he got 20 0'd. But Raincloud, keep us up to date on this Catapult. We're really interested. We're invested now. Good luck to both of those players for their round 3s.
Okay, and then on table 28 we had Leo running his Stegodon Bonanza versus Jan Carlos Ramirez, who was running. You played him in round 1, right? So that's the
So he's got his Take a Tribe. The Gargants. Yeah. So Juan Carlos has got a Kraken Eater with the Glowy Lantern, which makes him a wizard, and he's got the Amulet of Destiny for 5-up ward, and then he's got 3 War Stompers, and he's got the Life Swarm in there as well. So he's looking to be really tanky with his Gargants, park himself on objectives, retreat from combat, and just score on primary victory points. But I think the Stegodons, with their shooting and their charges and doing all of that, were actually able to take down a couple of the Gargants early and get the 17-3 win for Detro. I'm going to talk about it now. I think we've got 1 or 2 more Gargant lists, but I think Take a Tribe versus Break a Tribe is a good conversation to have that we're going to have after the game. So bear this result in mind when we talk about that later. Shall we move on to table 29?
Yeah, so Hippie Chef versus Mitch Hester. Now, Hippie Chef played Matt Terrell in the first game and had a little bit of a feels bad with the old move up and then get double turned and lose. But in this game, I believe he moved up, locked his opponent in, and then didn't get double turned and then won, right? I think that's basically the summary.
So, classic Hippie Chef, if it fails once, try it again. And this time he succeeded. Mitch running his Nighthaunt. I just don't think Nighthaunt have the output to deal with hippie zombies. And they just kept coming back. And were able to win the grind on this occasion.
You have to say as well, Nighthaunt had got to be the dream matchup for zombies, given that Ethereal is basically nullified by the fact that all the output is mortal wounds, right?
Yeah, definitely. So if Hippie getting a 20-0 there, which puts him in a better place after getting a Matt Tyrrell in round 1. And I just want to shout out Mitch as well. He's doing well with his Nighthaunt. I know he's not on too many points. He thought he had 1 point from this game, but Hippie Chef forgot to count his grand strategy. So would like to keep track of Mitch and his Nighthaunt in round 3. Table 30 was Dedrix versus a bye. I think this was Trogdor stepped in and played Dedrick's here, or I think this was a dropout. I can't remember how this game went. Dedrick's played his opponent, who then dropped out, I think. So I think we have to clean up this scoreboard because I don't think the scores have been entered quickly. I think Dedrick's might be getting some points from a forfeit on this round.
Okay. Yeah.
Not too much to say there. We do have a little bit to say about Hayden Wright and versus Tigers Lost Corn. 16-4. Hayden's running Seraphon, is that right?
Yeah, Seraphon.
Yep, so another tough matchup for Corn to get in round 2. He's got the Saurus, that's it, 15 Saurus Knights, 30 Saurus Warriors, Cottle's Claw. This list wasn't able to get the win in round 1, but was able to get the win in round 2 against the Corn. So Cottle's Claw looking like the weaker of the 4 Seraphon sub-factions, is that right?
Yeah, well, the +1 to hit is possibly less valuable than it used to be, and definitely the command trait that allowed you to recycle command points to use on a 4-up is maybe a little bit worse than it used to be, although there's a discussion about, given you're using more command points now than you used to, does that make it slightly better, even though you can't use more than 1 per phase? I don't know. We'll see sort of where we land on that. But has to be said, Luke, Saurus Veteran on Carnosaur for 215 points is ludicrous.
I'm undercosted, Stuart. It's so undercosted. Oh my god.
There's nothing. There's no other monsters in the game that are even remotely close to that in terms of points for 12 wounds at a 4-up save. Yeah.
And he's got 5 damage attacks. And Khorne haven't got the tankiest of armor saves, and these 2 Carnosaurs were able just to eat some dudes and really make the Khorne pay. So Hayden repping the more less seen things that you get in the Seraphon battle tome with the Saurus Warriors and things like that, but was able to make it work in round 2. So well done to Hayden. If you just want to go back to the ladder, I do have a little update from Trogdor, our glorious leader, saying that the table above with Dedrick's versus the bye was Dedrick's versus Jolly Blade, and they both had to forfeit their games, so they both get the loss because they weren't able to find time. So that's a bit of a admin there. We'll move back on to table 32 with Matt versus Connor. Connor running Stomper Tribe, Matt running
IDK.
Yeah, tough matchup for the Gargants. Actually, they can the IDK can choose when and where they go in. And on round 3, they can just put their whole army into a Gargant and blow it up quite convincingly, can't they?
Yeah, I think for Gargants, they don't want to play against something that just kills them. They want to play against something that plays the game Age of Sigmar, not blow your opponent off. That's a fair summary, isn't it, Luke? Like, you don't want to play against something that doesn't play objectives and just wants to table you, because you're good at playing objectives.
Yeah, and Connor's definitely leaning into clearing out hordes with his Stomper Tribe. He's got his 6 Man Crushers in this list, trying to get their pluses to damage from the Stomper Tribe. And Matt rocked up with some MSU Eels, which is not what the Stompers wants to get in. A bit of a rough matchup for Connor there.
Yep.
Table 33, Blue Omnicron versus Haf's Lumineth list. I think we do have a little bit of information about this one. So it was Soulblight is what Blue Omnicron was running versus Haf's Lumineth. 3 times Haf shot Vordry with 20 Sentinels and managed to get him, but his hunger and his heroic action was always healing back up. So Vordry was able to not be taken down by Sentinels trying to chip damage them over a couple of turns. The healing that the Vordry can put out, able to keep him topped up and healthy. And I think once Vordry got to the Wardens, he was able to make short work of them.
Yeah, it's got to be said, anything that's got extra sources of healing on its War Scroll, so Vordry's got the once per game D6 healed in the hero phase, as well as the D3 after he kills something with the hunger. Any unit
any monster with access to heal and heroic action is proving to be really tough to take down, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
I think there's a lot to be said about one-shotting big monsters. We've said it with Ironclads, we've said it with Frostlords. Definitely, Luke and Stuart top tip for list building an RS3 is you need something in your list that can one-shot a big monster like Prince Vordry, and Haf wasn't able to do so. He also got quite unlucky later on, where he put Severith and 16 Wardens into a Necromancer with 20 skeletons behind him, and wasn't able to bring him down with the Necromancer being able to bounce off wounds for his minions, which denied him the Slay the Warlord and basically lost him the game there. So being able to concrete take out threats and concrete guarantee your battle tactics is key in AOS3, and I think that's a lesson that Haf learnt here.
Yeah, I find myself picking those kill X unit battle tactics less and less as time goes on. I mean, in my game against Rob, my Frostlord failed to kill 10 skeletons, which is just an epic whiff.
It can happen.
And then, fortunately my 380s came in and got the job done with the +1 to wound triumph. But yeah, it can be a disaster when you don't get the battle tactics. So I'm sure it was late game and he didn't have much else to pick, but maybe... I'm thinking in my games, like early game, I'm just looking for some easy freebie ones rather than something that could go horrifically wrong and lose me the game.
Absolutely. So we're looking for competitive Warhammer is all about guaranteeing results and being sure and not relying too much on RNG. I mean, I think he got a bit unlucky there. I think Severith and 16 Wardens would like to think you take down a Necromancer, but it goes to show that picking the right battle tactics is definitely key to winning games. Who would have thought it? Shall we go back to the ladder? Shall we, Stuart?
Yeah, I will say with the Necromancer, it does feel slightly bad because, let's say you're fighting him with a big unit of dudes, you can't allocate half your attacks into his shield and then him, and then expect to kill both of them, because it happens at the same time. So the Necromancer can allocate all his wounds first onto the unit, and then even if the unit is overkilled by the other wounds that you've split into them, the Necromancer can still basically have used them as a shield. That's kind of something that's just a bit annoying when you're playing against the Necromancer.
Yeah, it is a bit. It's something to watch out for. Table 34, Michael, I believe this is Inquisitors, and his Sylvaneth versus Anthony Coach and his dock list without Gotrek.
Yeah, so, I mean, congrats to Coach for getting the win here. I mean, I would say definitely the Sylvaneth in this tournament so far, it's a bit tricky, isn't it? Yeah.
It's a bit tricky to be a tree guy. It is. Although Michael got 9 points here, which I think's something to talk about, because Anthony's running his Clouds of Witch Elves, which are going to be running and charging and doing loads and loads of attacks, and he's still got Morathi. I'll be interested to see how Michael dealt with Morathi on this list. Well, obviously didn't deal with him too successfully because he got lost, but he still got 9 points. So Sylvaneth are able to probably teleport around, get some battle tactics. I think Sylvaneth are good at getting those battle tactics that you mentioned, such as Savage Spearhead, getting to your opponent's territory with summoning trees, running 3 units, because you often have units of 5 Spike Revenants or Tree Revenants, a couple of them grouped up, running to get Ferocious Advance. They play the objective game okay, they just struggle to get the output where they need it, and I'm sure Coach punished him for that, with the Witch Elves being a squishy target but still not being able to be taken out by the Sylvaneth.
Okay, and then we've got our last game here, Luke. I'm not sure about this game. Do you know what?
So Trevor is the absolute madman running his KO list with Magmadross, and was able to get the 20-0 win against Hunter's Khorne, I believe. I think Hunter's running Khorne.
Yeah, let's just double check that. Yeah, Khorne. Yep.
Yep. So not looking good for Khorne, is it? It's really not looking good for Khorne.
I mean, Skull Reapers, 5 Skull Reapers for 205 points is that's a lot, isn't it?
That's a lot. Yeah, it is. I think this was very much Khorne kept at a distance by the KO, which still have the Ironclad and still have the ranged output. Khorne have never done well against shooting, have they?
No, and I think especially without maybe your Scarbrand or something to just go in there and kill the Magmadroths or the boats. It might be tricky versus KO. Yeah.
All right. I'm keen to quickly move on because I've quickly got work approaching. So we've got just 1 or 2 more games to go through. So game table 36 was James's cities did actually play against Trogdor's buy, so Trogdor bought his corn, and he sent me the message saying that James had a great game with Trogdor. Corn was given turn 1 and did that classic thing of take turn 1 and do nothing, which I know you're a big fan of. It was a very defensive, yeah, very defensive, very cagey game, and I think James probably played a bit too over defensive and was able to not prevail against that late game corn summoning and able to get all those battle points that Trogdor was able to do. So it was a 15-5 to Trogdor's corn running the buy-buster list there. And Jolly Blade was the Dedrick's opponent, who was also got the loss because they weren't able to find the game. So that's why we've got an extra table, 37 chucked in there. So that's it for round 2. How are you finding the tournament, Stuart? What a round, eh?
Yeah, I'm having a great time so far, and I feel like every week we're doing this and we're reviewing all the matchups and talking about Age of Sigmar, that my brain's sort of ticking over and finding new theories about the games, and you know, I'm grabbing inspiration as well from players like Raymond running the Nurgle. I was thinking about Nurgle for about a week and a half, and now I've just been thinking about Zangors for about a week now, and I'm sure I'll have a new phase next week. That tends to be how I work.
Shall we haven't talked about this, but shall we just do a little shout out? Do you want to shout out a player, shout out a list that might not necessarily be winning all their games, but that you think's found a really cool list and is doing well considered that? Do you want to shout out 1 or 2 players each?
I mean, I think we're both going to shout them out, but I really like Orcman's list. I've been kind of thinking about this myself lately, just running like 3 monsters and then a load of garbage. And I think that could actually work well in a lot of armies in the game. Like you think about Seraphon, let's run a bunch of Carnosaurs with some garbage. Ogres, let's run a bunch of Stonehorns with some garbage. That's basically my list. You know, there's all sorts of lists in the game. You know, basically every Chaos army can run a bunch of monsters with some garbage. And I think that's kind of where the game might be at. Is monsters plus garbage, and you know, in a lot of matchups, the person who wins that tends to actually, I think, have the better garbage, not the better monsters, which is kind of interesting. But in all my matchups so far,
I think there's a lot to say about get better screens. I think if you have access to like a lot of those bruiser models, like we're looking at Saurus Knights, we're looking at Chaos Knights, we're looking at Yetis. Those screens that you want to put up front, you're not too worried about them if they go down because you have your army ready behind them, but they're going to beat up the opponent's screen and then put you in a position where you have a screen and the opponent doesn't. And that's basically game winning, don't you think?
Yeah, I think there's like, and with those units you've listed as well, there's a big evolution towards like the self-sufficient screen, that you don't have to make Battleshock immune, and that you don't really have to buff to do damage. And you know, is durable, so it's not just going to get wiped by like 10 direwolves or something. I mean, the units that you just gave are great examples. Like the Yetis, you got the -1 to hit, and also the fact that you strike first is a huge durability bonus. Chaos Knights have 4-up save and then a 5-up mortal wound save, and then the Saurus Knights are more often than not in Coalesce, where they're reducing damage by 1. Yeah, and obviously those units as well I've gotten a bit better because, I mean, a Yeti's case, you're on 50mm bases and you've just got 3 of them. So you actually cover about, I think it's, was that like 8 inches with 3 Yetis, which is quite a big screening distance. And the cavalry especially, where you can just line up, you know, like a long chicken skewer or something, where you've got 5 guys just kind of sidewards, 1 inch apart. I mean, you cover a much larger distance with those 5 models than you would the equivalent points of 25mm bases or 32mm bases.
Well, that's exactly what your shout out Orcman has done with his Centaurs, isn't it? So
yeah,
well,
absolutely.
Up Orcman and his corn. I would like to shout out. I've got 2 shout outs that I want to shout out. I want to shout out Peter Dixon Ironside and his ogres. He's had 2 really rough matchups. I'd be throwing a tantrum if I got those 2 matchups round 2. And he's managed to get himself sat on 20 victory points over 2 rounds, which I think is awesome for Peter Dixon and his ogres. My second shout out was going to be Nicholas M and his Stormcast list and his hilarious list rundowns telling me about Gotrek not doing a lot. He's messaged me just now saying that he tried this list outside of this tournament with Gavriel, Shoreheart getting the guaranteed charge and Indrasta, and it worked quite a bit better for him. So looking to see Nick's Stormcast list evolve with a new book and some new toys. So Peter Dixon and Nick, good luck for the rest of the tournament. Have you got anyone else you want to quickly shout out?
I would like to shout out the other ogre players for so I guess that includes Iron Tide again, but yeah, we're getting there. We're doing it. We're doing it. Let's hope one of us gets the 6-0. I don't know how we're gonna do that, but with enough metal crunching, anything can happen.
Well, can you do me a quick favour, Stuart, and go on to the ladder, which is everyone's tournament points all added up, and how we're doing after round 2. So we're going to quickly have a quick look at this and look at the ogre players. We have got Constantine in 8th, AZ in 9th, yourself slightly lower down in 19th, and then you've got Pask, Iron Tide, and FC Orbiter in the sort of the mid tables as well. There's no ogres at the bottom, and a lot of them are in the top 10. So I think that's got a bit of a surprise. It's certainly something that I wouldn't have called going into this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I think the ones in the top 10 are Frostsword and Stonehorn. The list. There's not a lot going. There's 3 of them in both those
3 in
lists.
a list, and that's it. Yeah.
So that tells you how strong that unit is. And my list, I think I'm really going to struggle to. I mean, I think by round 5, I'm going to be in, even if I'm 5-0, I'm going to be in the 3-2 bracket in terms of points, because I just can't score more than like 14 points. It's probably the maximum I'm going to get, to be honest. Yeah.
Just looking at this ladder has just reminded me, there's the top 10 looks really interesting, all spread out on points, and then there's an absolute slew of people on 30 victory points, and including myself, and that's a threatening field of opponents on 30 points. We've got Raymond and his Nurgle on 30 points, Jonathan's IDK, Tavi Seraphon, Philip Cartier's Demon control list, Alex Tubbs' Cabalist control list, me and my Gargants, and Orkman's Corn. I don't want any of them round 3, man.
Yeah, that's a den of wolves.
That's scary.
No, get out of there. Yeah.
That's 30 points. So, everyone, thanks for joining in. We have got round 3 coming up soon. I know it's a little bit late. We've got one game still to play, which is going to be played this evening. So just thanks for your patience on round 3. We're really looking forward to seeing who we will get mashed up against. Thanks for joining us for the rundown for round 2. We hope you're enjoying the tournament. Stuart, have you got anything you want to say for our lovely viewers before we head off? Because I do have to go to work soon.
I would like to say, just quickly, if your game is going mega long, don't be afraid to contact any of the TOs. Yeah,
absolutely. Get a hold of us. We know that there's a few language barriers, a few time zone differences and stuff. If you're having any issues playing your games or scheduling your games, just get in touch with me, Trogdor, Cavi, one of the other TOs, and we'll get it sorted out. It's been a really well-behaved tournament so far. Lots of great stories, not a lot of feel-bads and lots of feel-goods. So we're really enjoying it, and we hope you are too. Thanks very much for tuning in, and we'll catch everyone later for round 3. Toodaloo.